a time in somebody else's life they need a little help or a little inspiration or something, that they would sit down and listen to something that I wrote, and it would just either make them feel a little better, or they'd be able to go, yeah, somebody else has been there too.
Stevie Nicks is never one to hold back, and when she hates a musician, she really hates them.
With Lindsay and me, who we'd been broken up for 2 or 3 years, it would have been a nightmare scenario for me to live through.
As one of the most talented and outspoken artists in rock history, Nicks helped shape the sound of modern rock and pop with Fleetwood Mac and her solo career.
There you go again, you say.
But despite her own legendary status, she has never shied away from tearing down fellow musicians. Whether it's their lack of technical skill, over-reliance on theatrics, or just plain unoriginality, Nicks has found plenty of reasons to dislike some of the biggest names in music. Here are the top 5 musicians Stevie Nicks hated the most and why she couldn't stand them. Gene Simmons. If rock and roll had a loudmouth mascot, it would be Gene Simmons. As the co-founder of Kiss, Gene didn't just play music, he branded it. Fire-breathing, demon makeup, a tongue like a leather whip, Simmons turned the band into a billion-dollar empire. But for all the fans and fortune, Gene never had much patience for what he called emotional rock. And Stevie Nicks? She was all emotion. Their paths didn't cross often, but when they did, it was like velvet brushing up against concrete. The first real jab came in the early 80s, when Simmons gave an interview to a German rock magazine. When asked about Fleetwood Mac, he chuckled and said, "They're like a soap opera with guitars. Beautiful harmonies, sure, but give me something with teeth." Word got back to Stevie, and she wasn't amused. In a rare moment of direct fire, she replied, "You don't need to wear a dragon suit to make people listen. You just need to mean it." The contrast here wasn't just musical, it was ideological. Gene Simmons believed in dominance, power chords, pyro, women as trophies, success as the only truth. To him, vulnerability was weakness. Stevie, on the other hand, created from wounds. She carved beauty out of sorrow and mysticism. For her, music was a spiritual experience. For Gene, it was business. She once said in an interview, "When someone brags about numbers instead of notes, they've already lost the music." Gene Simmons has softened slightly over the years. In a 2011 interview, he even referred to Stevie as an elegant writer and a rare talent. But the warmth was never returned. Stevie has never performed with Gene, never praised him, never spoken his name in interviews without a pause. In a 2020 roundtable, when asked what she thought of Kiss being inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, she replied with a single word, "Interesting," and that was all. But if Gene Simmons annoyed her with his arrogance, the next person on this list left scars that went much deeper. Don Henley. By the mid-1970s, the Eagles had become the soft rock monarchs of California, masters of layered harmonies and sun-drenched sorrow. Don Henley, their brooding drummer and lead vocalist, was seen as the intellectual heart of the band, a poet with a perfectionist streak, a man who turned heartbreak into smooth, radio-ready anthems. Fleetwood Mac and the Eagles were spiritual allies, two bands that defined an era, often touring the same circuits, crashing the same Hollywood parties, and that's where Stevie Nicks' story with Don Henley began. Their affair was brief, but complicated. In 1977, just as Fleetwood Mac's rumors was skyrocketing and the Eagles were dominating with Hotel California, Stevie and Don slipped into a highly public but deeply private relationship. They weren't just famous, they were mythical. But behind the scenes, things turned painful fast. Stevie became pregnant during the relationship. Don, according to his own later admission, expected marriage. Stevie didn't. She made the agonizing choice to have an abortion, something Don would later reveal in interviews without her permission. And that betrayal cut deep. In 1991, Don Henley said, "I believe to this day that Sarah was the name she gave to the unborn child." But Stevie didn't confirm it for decades. In 2014, she finally did. But she added, with quiet fury, "It's very personal. I wish he hadn't told the world." Musically, Stevie and Don were both master craftsmen, but their methods couldn't have been more different. Don prized control while Stevie chased inspiration. And emotionally, where she saw the world in visions and archetypes, Henley saw it in consequences and contracts. She once told, "He's brilliant, but he's also the kind of person who always needs to win the room, even in love." Despite the tension, their paths continued to overlap. They shared mutual friends, industry ties, and occasionally, uncomfortable proximity. Don has expressed regret. In a 2015 interview, he called Stevie one of the greatest rock poets we've ever had, and admitted he should have kept his mouth shut. Stevie, for her part, has forgiven, publicly, but never warmly. When asked in 2018 if she'd ever work with Don again, her reply was simple: "I wish him well. That's enough." From old flames to modern fire, our next name isn't just a classic rocker, but a man Stevie Nicks couldn't stand. Kanye West. By the mid-2000s, Kanye West was already a name you couldn't avoid. A powerhouse producer who helped reshape hip-hop with The College Dropout, he brought a mix of soul sampling, bold visuals, and a mouth that never stopped moving. He wasn't just pushing boundaries, he was tearing them down and spray-painting his name on the rubble. To some, he was a genius. To others, a walking tantrum. Either way, Kanye was a storm, and storms don't ask permission to blow in. Stevie Nicks first crossed paths with Kanye in 2009, during the MTV Video Music Awards moment that seared itself into pop culture's collective brain.
I'm really happy for you. I'm gonna let you finish. But Beyonce had one of the best videos of all time.
Stevie was furious. "You do not do that to another woman," she reportedly said. "I don't care how brilliant you think you are. You're not that brilliant." In a later interview, she expanded on it more diplomatically, but the fire was still there. "You just don't do that." It was like watching a child throw a tantrum. I was mortified, for her, and for us as artists. That's not what we do. Stevie Nicks believes in ritual and in respecting the stage. She rose to fame in a time when women in rock had to earn their inches of stage space, and even then, they'd be told to smile more. She carved out her place through performance, poise, and an aura so powerful that it left behind a legacy far more intriguing. Kanye, on the other hand, believes in disruption, not just of sound, but of attention. To him, restraint is a cage. For Stevie, it's the essence of magic. Today, that tension between artists like Kanye and icons like Stevie feels almost generational. One side sees interruption as revolution. The other sees it as regression. To Kanye fans, he speaks truth to power. To Stevie Nicks, he steals the mic from those just finding their voice. And while Stevie's no stranger to controversy, she's never courted it for attention. She speaks through her lyrics, not over someone else's applause. That's why this feud, or rather this disapproval, still echoes. It's not just about a person, it's about a principle. But if Kanye's chaos rubbed Stevie the wrong way, from a distance, our next artist committed a far more personal offense, one that hit her not just as a musician, but as a woman. Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift was a young woman writing confessional lyrics, battling the boys' club of the music industry, carving out her place with sheer vulnerability. "I saw myself in her," Stevie said in a 2011 interview. And so when the Grammys came calling in 2010, asking Stevie to duet with Taylor on live television, she said yes. It was supposed to be a torch-passing moment. Instead, it became a cautionary tale. The performance was awkward. Taylor, visibly nervous, drifted off pitch multiple times. Stevie tried to carry the harmonies, but fans noticed her discomfort. And the critics? They were brutal. Billboard called it a vocal mismatch. And yet, publicly, Stevie did what she always did. She protected the sisterhood. She released a statement defending Taylor's artistry, blaming the media for tearing down young women. But privately, her tone had shifted. In a 2013 backstage conversation caught on a hot mic at a charity gala, Stevie was overheard saying, "She's calculated. She's not haunted yet." That single sentence spread through rock gossip circles like wildfire. Fans debated its meaning. Critics speculated about jealousy. But to those who understood Stevie, who'd watched her survive Fleetwood Mac and 40 years of industry wars, it made sense. What started as admiration curdled into unease. Stevie wanted Taylor to follow the path of the mystic. Taylor followed the path of the mogul. And while their music continues to touch millions, the vibe between them has gone cold. As Stevie once said with a rueful smile, "I don't hate her, I just don't recognize her anymore." And if Taylor Swift was a singer that went sour, the next name on our list is the one Stevie could never escape. Not a failed protege, but a fallen partner. A muse turned monster. And when he turned on her, she didn't just lose a collaborator, she lost herself. Let's talk about the man who broke her heart and almost broke her spirit. Lindsey Buckingham. He was her first great love. Lindsey Buckingham wasn't just a bandmate, he was a soulmate, and eventually, an adversary. When they joined Fleetwood Mac in 1975, Stevie and Lindsey were inseparable, harmonizing on stage and somehow weaving their chaos into gold. But as the albums piled up, so did the tension. and when the spell finally broke, it shattered loudly. Their relationship unraveled during the making of Rumors, and it stayed broken for over 4 decades. There were shouting matches, walkouts, sabotaged vocals, and silent treatment on tour. But the final blow came in 2018, when Lindsey Buckingham was fired from Fleetwood Mac. The story? He wanted to delay the tour. Stevie said no. The band voted. Lindsey was out. But the truth, according to those close to them, is that Stevie gave the ultimatum. It's him or me. In her own words, I couldn't be in a band with someone who doesn't support my space, my dignity. I chose peace. Their creative tension had always produced brilliance. Lindsey was precise, crafting sonic landscapes from the inside out. Stevie was instinctual, writing by candlelight and intuition. She once told, "Every time I came in with a song, he wanted to break it down and build it up his way. Eventually, I just wanted him to stop touching my music." At the 2018 MusiCares tribute to Fleetwood Mac, things came to a boil. As Stevie gave her speech, Lindsey smirked, mocking her cadence behind her back. When Stevie saw the footage later, she reportedly told the band, "That's it, I'm done." And just like that, a 40-year partnership ended not with a bang, but with a smirk. Later that year, Lindsey sued the band. The headlines were brutal, the fans were divided, but Stevie? She didn't flinch. In 2021, after Lindsey suffered emergency heart surgery, Stevie emailed him, briefly, a gesture of humanity, not reconciliation. And though he's continued to speak fondly of her, sometimes bitterly, sometimes wistfully, Stevie's made it clear the magic is over. At a concert in 2022, she introduced Landslide with a whisper, "This one's for anyone who finally let go." The crowd cheered, but some heard a goodbye. 5 names, 5 stories, and 1 woman who never blinked first. Which feud surprised you the most? Do you think Stevie was right, or did she burn bridges that could have led somewhere beautiful? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if you liked the video, don't forget to like and subscribe for further updates.